It's weird how it starts, isn't it? This feeling. For me, it was Sarah. We'd known each other since freshman year of high school. Part of the same dorky friend group that obsessed over superhero movies and terrible puns. She was just there always. And funny. God, she was funny. Quick-witted, sarcastic. But never mean-spirited. And yeah, pretty. Like, effortlessly so. We ended up at the same commuter college, too, which only cemented things. Study sessions turned into late-night chats about everything and nothing. We dissected movies, debated albums, and ranted about professors. We just clicked. I thought, stupidly, naively, that we were perfect for each other. We liked all the same things. We understood each other's humor. I figured that was it, the secret sauce of a great relationship. Looking back, it's embarrassing how little I understood myself, let alone what actually mattered in a partner. But back then, I was convinced. She was the one. The only problem? I was terrified to actually do anything about it. The fear of ruining the friendship was a concrete wall in my mind, insurmountable. So, I just simmered, secretly crushing, silently hoping. And utterly, completely stuck. That fear, that wall, it was built from years of, well, nothing. Of feeling invisible. Of seeing myself as fundamentally unworthy of someone like her. It wasn't just about Sarah, not really. It was about me. I was convinced I wasn't good enough, not interesting enough, not attractive enough. High school hadn't exactly been a parade of romantic successes. I was the quiet guy, the friend, the one who held the coats while everyone else danced. So, the idea of actually putting myself out there, of confessing feelings that felt so huge and overwhelming, was terrifying. Rejection wasn't just a possibility, it was a certainty. And the thought of ruining the friendship, of losing Sarah entirely, was unbearable. I rationalized it, of course. I told myself I was protecting the friendship, being selfless. But really, I was just protecting myself from the potential pain, the embarrassment, the confirmation of my deepest insecurities. It was easier to stay in the friend zone, to simmer in silence, than to risk it all. Safer, but ultimately so much more frustrating. I was trapped by my own self-doubt, a prisoner of my own making. College, though, subtly started to chip away at that wall. Being at a bigger school, even a commuter one, forced me to interact with more people. I joined a study group for my history class, started volunteering at the campus radio station. Even reluctantly went to a few parties. Small things, really. But each interaction, each conversation, each slightly less awkward social encounter added up. It wasn't an overnight transformation. More like a slow simmer finally reaching a boil. I started paying more attention to my appearance, not because I was trying to impress anyone specifically, but because I wanted to feel better about myself. I started going to the gym, reading more, just generally trying to become a more well-rounded person. And then, something strange started happening. Girls started noticing me, making eye contact, smiling, actually engaging in conversations. It was jarring, like stepping into an alternate reality where I wasn't invisible anymore. I'd spent so long believing I was unnoticeable that the attention felt alien. My default response was still fight or flight, a weird mix of flustered and panicked. But slowly, very slowly, I started to get used to it. And with that, a tiny seed of confidence began to sprout. Then Sarah started acting differently. It started subtly, teasing me about the girls who were suddenly interested, a playful nudge here, a knowing glance there. At first, I dismissed it. Maybe she was just happy for me. But then it escalated. Little jokes that lingered a beat too long. lingering eye contact that felt charged. A brush of her hand against mine that could have been accidental, but felt deliberate. It was a minefield. Was she actually flirting? Was she just being friendly? Was I completely misreading the situation, projecting my own desires onto her actions? My head was spinning. Years of pent-up longing mixed with this sudden, unexpected possibility created a potent cocktail of hope and anxiety. Sleep became a luxury. Every interaction was analyzed, dissected, and replayed in my mind 1,000 times. The tension was building, a low hum beneath the surface of our friendship. It felt like we were on the precipice of something, but I couldn't tell if it was a breakthrough or a disaster waiting to happen. The newly acquired confidence was being tested, stretched to its breaking point. I was more confused than ever. But one thing was becoming clear. I couldn't stay stuck in this limbo forever. So, I decided to grow a pair, as they say. I asked her to meet me at our usual coffee shop, the one near campus where we'd spent countless hours studying and gossiping. I wanted to do it in person, to be genuine, to show her I was serious. But the moment she sat down, all that newfound confidence evaporated. My palms were sweating, my voice was cracking, and my carefully rehearsed speech dissolved into a jumbled mess of awkward phrasing and stammered confessions. I basically word vomited my feelings all over her, a rambling, incoherent declaration that sounded less like a heartfelt confession and more like a hostage negotiation. She looked stunned. A flicker of surprise, then a hesitant smile that quickly faded. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. And then, the words I dreaded. I don't feel the same way. The rejection was gentle, but firm. She said she valued our friendship, that she didn't want to ruin what we had. The classic lines. But hearing them, even delivered with kindness, felt like a punch to the gut. The entire interaction was excruciating, a slow-motion train wreck of my own making. I wanted to disappear, to rewind time, to simply cease to exist. Immediate regret washed over me, a bitter wave of self-recrimination. I had botched it, completely and utterly. The aftermath was weird. The easy camaraderie we'd always shared was gone, replaced by a palpable awkwardness. Sarah started avoiding me. Not completely, not in a dramatic, cutting off all contact kind of way, but subtly. She'd sit further away in group hangouts, avoid making eye contact, and generally keep her distance. It stung, of course. It felt like a confirmation of my worst fears, that I'd ruined everything, that I'd destroyed a valuable friendship for nothing. The coffee shop became a no-go zone. Even seeing her name pop up on my phone sent a jolt of anxiety through me. I replayed the confession in my head endlessly, picking apart every word, every gesture, torturing myself with what-ifs. The worst part was the silence. The unspoken tension that hung in the air whenever we were in the same room. It felt like we were both walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might shatter the fragile peace. I tried to act normal, to pretend that nothing had changed, but it was impossible. The friendship was irrevocably altered, tainted by the unrequited feelings and the clumsy confession. The wall I had feared was now a reality, built not by my insecurity, but by her rejection. But life, as it tends to do, went on. I threw myself into my studies, spent more time with other friends, and generally tried to move forward. It wasn't easy, but I was determined not to let the rejection define me. Slowly, the sting began to fade. The coffee shop lost its power. Seeing Sarah's name on my phone became less of a trigger. Then, something unexpected happened. After a couple of months, I noticed Sarah was watching me. Not in a creepy way, but with a curious, almost calculating look. She seemed to be gauging my reactions, observing my interactions with others. It was subtle, but noticeable. And then she started, trying harder, making more of an effort to be around me, initiating conversations, even laughing at my terrible jokes. It was like she was testing the waters, seeing if the coast was clear. It was baffling. Had she changed her mind? Was she regretting her decision? Or was it something else entirely? The old confusion started to creep back in, but this time, it was tempered with a healthy dose of skepticism. I wasn't going to fall for it again. Or so I told myself. Then came the jokes. We'd be hanging out with our group of friends, and Sarah would suddenly bring up the confession. Remember that time, narrator, declared his undying love for me in the middle of Starbucks, she'd say, laughing. It was meant to be lighthearted, I guess, but it felt mean. At first, I played along, forced a smile, made a self-deprecating comment, tried to brush it off. I didn't want to make things awkward, to create more tension. But the jokes kept coming, and they started to get more pointed, more personal. Some of them were borderline tasteless, dredging up embarrassing details from my awkward confession. And something shifted within me. The attraction I'd harbored for so long began to fade. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic vanishing act, but a slow, steady erosion. The more she joked, the less I liked her. The more she poked fun at my feelings, the more I realized she wasn't the person I'd built her up to be in my head. The jokes stopped hurting, not because I was stronger, but because I simply stopped caring. The pedestal I'd placed her on crumbled, and the real Sarah, with her casual cruelty and need for attention, was revealed. It was in my film studies class. Of all places that I met Emily. She was quiet, kind, and possessed a gentle humor that was both refreshing and disarming. There was no grand romantic gesture, no whirlwind courtship. Just easy conversation, shared interests, and a mutual sense of comfort. Dating her was different. It wasn't the roller coaster of emotions I'd experienced with Sarah, the constant questioning and analyzing. It was just easy. We could talk for hours about anything and everything, or simply sit in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. She was soft, understanding, and genuinely cared about my feelings. It was my first real relationship, and it was a steep learning curve. I realized that being pretty and having common interests wasn't enough. I needed someone who was kind, patient, and gentle with my sometimes overwhelming emotions. Someone who valued me for who I was, flaws and all. Someone who didn't need to tear me down to feel better about themselves. Looking back, I started to think that maybe Sarah realized we weren't compatible long before I did. Maybe her rejection was a blessing in disguise, steering me towards someone who was actually right for me. My relationship with Emily was a crash course in emotional maturity. It forced me to confront my own insecurities, to communicate my needs, and to learn how to navigate the complexities of intimacy. It wasn't always smooth sailing, of course. There were arguments, misunderstandings, and moments of doubt. But through it all, we learned to communicate, to compromise, and to support each other. I realized that relationships weren't about finding someone who liked all the same things as you, but about finding someone who respected you, who valued your opinion, and who made you feel safe and loved. Someone who challenged you to grow, who supported your dreams, and who was there for you, even when things were tough. It was a profound shift in perspective. I had spent so long chasing after an idealized version of love, based on superficial similarities and a romanticized fantasy. But with Emily, I discovered what real love felt like, a quiet, steady flame that burned brightly, even in the darkest of times. It was a love built on mutual respect, genuine affection, and a deep, unwavering connection. A love that actually felt real. We kept our relationship quiet from the friend group for the first 2 months. I wanted to see how things went, to avoid any unnecessary drama or outside pressure. But eventually, we had to tell them. We were at a small get-together, and it just felt right. Emily and I were holding hands, laughing at some inside joke, and I knew it was time. The reactions were mostly positive. A mix of surprise and genuine happiness. Except for Sarah. Her reaction was weird. Subtle, but noticeable. As I announced the news, her face did this tiny micro-expression thing. A slight tightening of her lips, a brief furrowing of her brow, like she was processing something she didn't like. It was so quick, so fleeting, that I almost missed it. But I saw it. And then, almost immediately, she plastered on a smile and offered her congratulations. But the flicker of something had been there. Was it jealousy? Regret? Disappointment? I couldn't tell for sure. But it was enough to make me pause, to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as indifferent as she pretended to be. It was also enough to make me feel a little uneasy. I had a feeling things were about to get complicated. Almost immediately after we announced the relationship, Sarah's behavior shifted again. She started messaging me more often, sending links to articles she knew I'd be interested in, making more of an effort to hang out, just the two of us. The conversations were innocent enough. But there was a subtle undercurrent of something. A lingering touch, a playful tease, a compliment that felt a little too personal. It wasn't overt flirting. But it was enough to make me uncomfortable. And it definitely made Emily uncomfortable. She knew Sarah from high school, and they had even been casual friends before things got weird. I showed her some of the messages, and she didn't say much, but I could see the unease in her eyes. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let Sarah's behavior jeopardize my relationship with Emily. So, I decided to be direct. I messaged Sarah and told her that I needed her to stop messaging me so much, that it wasn't appropriate now that I was in a relationship. I explained that I valued our friendship, but that I needed to prioritize my girlfriend's feelings. It was awkward, uncomfortable, and a little bit scary, but it was necessary. Sarah didn't take it well. She defended herself, claiming she wasn't flirting, that it was all platonic, just friendly banter. She said she understood my concerns, but I could tell she was hurt. Maybe even angry. Things got awkward, again. She toned down her interactions with me in person, which I was happy about. But then, I found out she'd been talking about me behind my back. Spreading rumors, making me look bad to our mutual friends. Small, petty things, but enough to create a rift within the group. It wasn't a dramatic falling out, but a subtle shift in dynamics. Suddenly, some of our friends were distant, less likely to invite me to things, more likely to side with Sarah in disagreements. It split the way people in the friend group talk to me. I only really talk to about half of them now. It stung, initially. To be ostracized, to be the subject of gossip, to have my character questioned. But honestly, I didn't care that much. I had Emily. And if that meant losing some friends along the way, so be it. Years later, I'm still with Emily. We've been through a lot together, and our relationship continues to grow stronger every day. I've learned so much about myself, about love, and about what truly matters in life. And looking back, I can finally see the whole Sarah situation for what it was. I used to think Sarah was the perfect girl for me, that we were meant to be together, that our shared interests and similar personalities made us soulmates. But I was wrong. I was so focused on the surface-level similarities that I completely missed the deeper, more important qualities. I think, ultimately, Sarah just wanted attention. She thrived on the validation of others, and my infatuation was a convenient source of it. Maybe she genuinely liked me. Maybe she didn't. But either way, she wasn't capable of the kind of genuine, selfless love that I found with Emily. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Sarah's rejection, for the awkwardness, for the drama, because it ultimately led me to Emily. I thought I knew what I wanted for so long, but it turns out I had no idea. I thought Sarah was the right person, but I actually ended up with the right person. And that's more than I could have ever asked for.